What was going through my head? Turned out to not be that. I was lucky.
Yeah. Which I would assume that most of the time it's not cancer.
Yeah.
But all right, thank you. Matt's like, can you please get your heads on track? He's probably not. It's just how I interpret it.
My dad was a rock, though.
Aww.
Like, when I told him, he was like, we're going to kick its ass.
Aww.
Like, that was his first response. I was like, thank you.
15 seconds.
Oh,
That's cool.
15 seconds. I'm going to open the show crying, okay? And it has nothing to do with this football team. Rise and shine, everyone. The Jaguars are tied for first in the division entering Week 7 for the first time since 1999. Today faced division opponent, the Indianapolis Colts, kicking off at Lucas Oil Stadium at 1 o'clock. Y'all, I already know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Good morning, Tony and Blythe. Is today a must-win for the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Well, I think technically no, right? Like, it's not a must-win until you're in a game where you're eliminated from the playoffs if you don't win the game, but look, if you're going to be a serious contender for the AFC South, you got to beat the Colts. The Colts are supposed to be the worst team in the division. You can't let them have ideas in the next, 7-8 hours that they're not. Put them in their place at the bottom of the division. Make them look 2 games behind everybody else that's at the top after today, likely with Tennessee playing Cleveland. So put them in that spot, put them in the basement, and move on. 2-0 on the road in the division. That's huge for a team that really hasn't been able to get that kind of success in recent years. So must win. Not technically. If you're going to seriously think about contending for the AFC South, it's probably a must-win.
And it's definitely one of those games that the offense, especially Blake Bortles, can step up and I think will step up.
Emotionally, it sure as heck feels like a must-win. We've all been riding this roller coaster of emotions, and when the Jaguars go on the road, they're supposed to win. Whether it's London and technically a home game or not, they're supposed to win.
It's like win, loss, right? That's been the season so far.
That's 100% correct. And if this feels like a game where the Jaguars let one get away with the Jets, they absolutely cannot do that today. However, some news came out last night that may change how everyone feels about the game. Jaguars running back Leonard Fournette is not expected to play, according to Ian Rappaport. How much does that change the offense, Blythe?
I mean, obviously he's a game changer on this team. He can single-handedly win, well, not single-handedly, but he can win the game and be that dominant force in the game. But with the bye week next week, I don't see it as that earth-shattering of news to not have Fournette playing as much as he getting. I think if he was going to play this game, you're going to have to put him on a pitch count because he was banged up last week. There was an audible gasp in the stadium whenever he went down with that what appeared to be the ankle injury. But I think this is the week that you sort of get Chris Ivory going. Last year he was not healthy at all throughout the whole season. So this year he's really started to sort of take a new path and sort of have a resurgence of his career. So I think you give the majority of the carries anyways, whether Fournette was going to go or not. I think you give the majority of the carries to Ivory.
See, I think Ivory has looked good this season, a lot better than last year. Certainly he wasn't healthy, but I kind of feel like Ivory looks good because Fournette is greasing up the running game for him and opening the holes. So I don't know that he can necessarily carry the load. We will find out today. I'm not surprised at all that Leonard Fournette is not going to play in this game. I think it's a safe bet, even though Leonard Fournette said this week, hey, I'm going to go. It's up to the coaches, but I feel fine. If you watched him go down, you saw he couldn't put any weight on that ankle coming off the field. He went into the medical tent. And yes, he was able to kind of run around after, but I think that was kind of almost pure adrenaline. And then he didn't practice at all this week. So to me, when that news came out last night, I was not surprised. But if you've been listening to what kind of Leonard Fournette's been saying and the coaches, it did seem like he was going to be able to go today. Tony, I kind of feel like it's almost a good thing if Fournette's not out there because they don't know exactly what the Jaguars are going to do with the football.
I think they do know. I don't think anything changes offensively for the Jags. I really don't. They are who they are. And I don't think that they think it changes because Chris Ivory is playing running back as opposed to Leonard Fournette. And honestly, I think for the majority of the games to this point this season, they've been what they've been because they have to be. The passing game just ain't good enough. Guys aren't winning. I get the idea, and, we take calls all week long from fans. We had a day this week where we were like, fix the offense. You can't bring anything else in from the outside. What is your ideas for how to fix this offense right now? And people are like, you got to throw the ball deep. Well, you do, right? If you want to get the 8th guy out of the box, at some point you got to throw the ball deep, but throwing the ball deep isn't enough. You got to do it effectively. And if the guy throwing it and the guy running the routes can't get open or they can't connect with each other, who cares how many times you throw it 20 yards downfield? If I was the defense, I wouldn't care. How many, you want to do that? Waste it down. Burn it. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. And that's what it feels like. Even in the game against Baltimore, Blake might have had his best game in a Jaguars uniform this season against the Baltimore Ravens. It might have been the best game that he's had since he got drafted here. You can make an argument for the Tennessee game, whatever. It doesn't matter. He was really, really good that day. And despite how good he was, despite how effective the Jaguars were throwing the ball downfield, Baltimore never changed what they were doing defensively because their mindset was, you can't do it again. And everybody that the Jaguars are going to play, until they can put together 3 weeks of being able to do that effectively, the idea is going to be, you can't do it again. Doesn't matter if you just hit the big one. You can't do it again. We don't think you can do it again. We dare you to try. So if you're Indianapolis coming into this game, the easiest way for you to lose is to let the Jaguars run the ball. So you don't change anything you're doing defensively because of it. If the Jaguars can do what they did against Baltimore and make some plays in the passing game early, then it changes the dynamic of the game because then you're the bully. You can give your defense a lead, and playing from ahead is where this team wants to be. If they're not effective doing it, then you're going to find yourself in a tussle, and the Jaguars are going to have to be running into that brick wall because the passing game isn't working again for another week, but trying to find some way to get that running game good enough that your defense is in the game long enough to make a play to put yourself in a position to win the game.
Is it disrespectful that a team is going to play goal line defense in the middle of the field against the Jaguars? I mean,
it's just smart.
It is smart.
Wasn't that what Wade Phillips did last week against?
Yeah. If you're Sean McVay, a 31-year-old head coach for the first time, you must be so thankful that Wade Phillips is your defensive coordinator.
Balls of steel.
Yeah, we had Loggeman in on Tuesday for a Check the Tape Tuesday, and he's like, I've never seen it. Like I've never seen an NFL defense play goal line in the middle of the field. Like, I've just never seen a team do that kind of thing on just 1st and 10. Like, it was just a regular, game situation.
Embarrassing.
And they're going out there saying you can't do it. And until you can do it, I don't even know, the Colts are built in a different way than the Rams. The Rams had guys that they can play around with a little bit more. I mean, Mark Barron's a guy who obviously got drafted as a safety. So you're playing a 6-2, and you really have one safety on the field, but you kind of have two with Barron on the field too, so you can interchange some things. They could do some things that the Colts just aren't built to do. And Wade Phillips is a smart enough guy that he looked at it and said, look, they're not going to beat us throwing it. And if they do, God bless them. Good on them for finding some way to get it done today, but we don't think that they're going to be able to get that kind of thing done. The Colts aren't built the same way, so I don't expect them to try the same thing. They may do it for a look or two, but probably not as consistently as the Rams did, just because they don't have the same pieces the Rams do.
With the Jaguars in particular, and Blake Bortles, he's actually had historically really good success against the Colts. He's passed for 7 touchdowns and 0 interceptions with a 95-plus passer rating in the past 4 meetings.
Knock on wood right now. The Colts don't have their quarterback, Andrew Luck, and their 2 victories have come against the winless Browns and the winless 49ers. So, Blythe, this should be easy, right?
It should be, but this is, as we saw with the Jets game, this is one of those games that the Jaguars should win, and so we'll see if they actually can pull it out. I do think that they, this is kind of, tipping my hand to our picks later on in the show, but I do think that the Jaguars this is a game, I said earlier in the week on Helmets and Heels that I didn't think that the Jaguars stood a chance to beat this Colts team just from the mental aspect of where they've been over the past few weeks, but this, after looking at the numbers, I do think that this should be a game that the Jaguars take advantage of early and often.
The Rams scored not 7, not 14, but 17 points off of Jaguars special teams blunders. On Tuesday, the Jaguars released kicker Jason Myers and brought in Josh Lambo. Tony, can the special teams issues be corrected in 1 week?
A lot of it, yes. Look, the Rams last week, not only 17 points, they were plus 23. Basically on special teams because Myers missed a couple kicks too, and he made the one. He made the one because he had 3 shots at it. He missed the other 2 on penalties, but he got that 3rd shot, and it was a charm for him at least in that moment. Obviously, not so charming for him after the game. But look, I think we'll see what it looks like with Lambeau. Hopefully this isn't the beginning of some, musical chairs deal with the kicker situation. Just make your kicks, Josh, please, so we don't have to talk about this week to week. And I think some of the coverage stuff, yeah, a lot of that is fixable. Again, we had Loggeman in on Tuesday on Jaguars Today, and he was talking specifically about the block punt, and he said Corey Grant just couldn't count, is essentially what happened on the play. He's like, look, you got a guy pulls out, the numbers are there, you got enough guys to block everybody, and Corey Grant just decides to go block a guy that somebody else is already blocking. So he just lets a free runner through. There's no reason to. You have a guy there to block him. He just didn't do his job. He said it almost happened a second time. The Rams almost got a second one, same exact thing. So the question becomes, is Corey Grant going to be the personal protector anymore? Now, the Jags have obviously used Grant on a couple of fake punts, one in the preseason, one in the regular season, and I think that's part of the reason that he's the personal protector is because of that speed he gives them if they want to go with those kind of plays.
Right.
But if the guy can't count well enough to figure out who he needs to block, then he can't be back there doing it. And if it means you can't run a fake punt, so be it. So, look, I think some of that stuff, that seems very correctable from week to week, and it shouldn't be a problem going forward.
Josh Lambeau. There's something.
It's a great name.
Yeah, there's something just, I guess because of Lambeau Field and everything, it just sounds like he's meant to be a star in the NFL, even though he, wasn't able to beat out Jason Myers in September when the Jaguars brought him in.
Wasn't he a soccer goalie and then decided to switch careers and become an NFL kicker? I think I read that somewhere, that he's been a soccer goalie for a long time and then decided, I'm going to give this NFL thing another chance.
I knew he played soccer. I didn't know what position. I know he also went out to the Armada game on Wednesday because he had played with one of the guys that plays on the Armada. So I do know that he has a strong soccer background. He retired from soccer at age 21. I know that part too, but I don't know exactly what he played. But
I
trust
retired
you
from
as
football
keeper.
at age 16. So.
I retired from swimming at age 11. All right, Blythe, for fans up in Indianapolis, they don't exactly have to worry about temperature at kickoff since they'll be inside the dome at Lucas Oil Stadium, but what's the weather like on their way there?
It's going to be in the low 70s for the majority of the tailgating atmosphere, and then through the majority of the game, it looks like it's going to stay right around the early 70s, so 70, 71, maybe 73 by the time crowds are leaving the stadium itself. But they're in a dome, so I guess the weather won't really affect them that much, but mostly cloudy and breezy. So one of those, I think that would be kind of like a perfect tailgating game down here in Jacksonville.
Oh yeah,
Mostly
absolutely.
cloudy.
Anything in the 70s, which I'm hoping that's what we get on Saturday. But the weather keeps changing for the expectation of Florida, Georgia weather. By the way, I'm very distracted now, and that we're going to need to change the channel.
Yes,
Dirty Dancing
it
is
is.
on.
I was like, we need to change this because
And
there's so much
all
happening
of
in the
us
sports
keep
world.
finding our eyes up to that television, so we're going to have
It's
to
the
change it.
dancing scene too, so
I
it's
know.
a little distracting.
One of many dancing scenes. If you are looking for a place to catch today's game, head to Whiskey Jack's Bay Meadows, where T-Wig and Bud Light will have quite the party. For us, up next, we will go around the AFC South, and fantasy expert Fat Tony will give you the latest in fantasy advice. That's all next. Stay tuned to 1010XL. The first time I started Dirty Dancing, I had no idea what the abortion scene was all about. Like, I had no clue.
I guess I haven't watched it in years because I don't know.
Remember, he goes to baby's dad, and he gets the cash to pay for her abortion.
I can't deal with this. I'm sorry, Tony. This thing is just like blocking your eyes, so all I see is the mouth moving. I was like, I can't talk to a mouth.
Yeah, he goes to get the cash.
Penny.
He's got no money. She wanted to help, but she can't help, so she went to go talk to my dad. So he went and talked to this girl's dad that's staying at the resort about getting money so that he can help his girlfriend get an abortion.
Which I didn't think it was Patrick Swayze's.
Dad didn't like. All I remember is for a little kid just watching the dancing scene. That's all
It wasn't Patrick Swayze's baby, right?
I don't
think
so.
It was. I think it was somebody else.
I think it was just like he's trying to help her out.
Yeah. It's funny. My cousin was watching it Friday night. She Snapchatted watching Dirty Dancing, and now it comes on now. Because I was like, oh, I'm kind of jealous. She was watching it. I remember being really sad when Patrick Swayze died. Not to send us back to cancer. But they are so skinny in this movie. If you Penny is so skinny. Jennifer Grey, baby is so skinny.
I think that's kind of when that beauty standard started.
Yeah, the 80s.
Yeah.
There's Newman.
Probably because everybody was on cocaine.
Probably.
dancing dirty wherever you're going, girl.
This is when they play "Stay Just a Little Bit Longer."
Oh, yeah.
Whenever she, you know, busts into the like where all the help is dancing. Oh, that's one of my favorite scenes because they're all sweaty and gross.
Oh goodness. So we have fantasy football coming up next.
Tony, you going off the top of your head?
No, I mean,
Okay.
yes and no.
I mean, I'm not worried about it one way or the other. I'm still gonna ask.
Just have to write your
questions.
scripts at the last minute. I've done that.
No script.
Dang it. I'm just gonna have them let the dog out. Now my parents are going to the game after all.
Who let the dogs out?
What game?
Florida, Georgia.
Oh, well.
My parents were just gonna go tailgate and not go to the game because why go is what my dad thinks. But now they're going and they were gonna be my dog letter outers.
I'll enjoy that.
This is the part. See?
I carried the watermelon.
Yeah. That's a great scene that he actually catches it. I don't see. I remember, however old I was, I remember being like, "Holy cow, this is scandalous."
Why doesn't he have his shirt on?
Because they're sweaty, Black. There's probably no AC.
I thought ass to crotch dancing started in like the 90s. No, it started in the 80s.
Started with Dirty Dancing.
We're watching Dirty Dancing during the commercial break in case you guys are wondering what we're talking about.
At my middle school, for our dances, if people danced too close, one of the teachers would come in and she'd go, "Father, Son, Holy Spirit needs to be between you."
Leave room for Jesus.
Yep. Which, like, 12-year-olds are not dancing like that.
No.
At least not in Catholic school they weren't.
Not the, I guess the official school dances probably.
This is fantastic.
I love watching movies that you watch as an adult or watch as a kid as an adult because then you notice all the references. Like a lot of like Disney movies and like you wouldn't pick that up, or even like is it not Animaniacs, Bugs Bunny, like all that, all those cartoons had a lot of really adult jokes. All Dogs Go to Heaven. Oh my God! Like if you watch that movie now, it's all about like drugs and gangs and murder, and that's the entire movie. All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Too sad for me to watch ever again.
Really?
I don't remember
the
actual movie. I just remember.
Yeah, it is a little sad, but then he comes back.
Anytime an animal dies, I cry.
30 seconds.
Oh, but there's another good dancing scene.
She's preggers.
Yeah. And she's 90 pounds, literally. Look at how thin she is.
That's a lot of coke.
10 seconds.
Who is this week's sleeper? Who's got breakout potential? Who's a bust? Here's Tony Smith with your fantasy football final.
All right, let's take a look. We'll start with the quarterback position. Our top 5 this week: Tom Brady at 1, Matt Ryan at 2. By the way, they're playing head-to-head tonight on Sunday Night Football.
That's going to be such a good
In
game.
a Super Bowl rematch. Drew Brees 3, Dak Prescott 4, and Carson Wentz at 5. Believe it or not, I'm not looking to get either quarterback from the Jags game again into a lineup. There's not going to be a lot of quarterbacks that I like to match up going against this Jaguars defense, so odds are I'm not going to have a lot of them in. And look, we know. I mean,
Tell us about Blake.
The pass game is just so limited here in Jacksonville that it's like Blake has been one of those guys that even last year when it felt terrible watching was a very viable fantasy option week to week, and this year just hasn't been that. They just aren't getting a whole lot done. as far as the passing game here in Jacksonville. So no Blake. None of the other passing options are going to come up later. There's no surprising additions here later on to the wide receiver group. Nothing like that. Some other guys that I do like this week. Welcome back, Marcus Mariota. Basically played from the pocket on Monday Night Football and just took the Colts apart without being able to use his legs. There was one point where he was scrambling out on a play where it looked like a play that Mariota, when completely healthy, probably runs for 6-7 yards maybe, and instead he just slides down behind the line of scrimmage for a sack. He just took a 1-yard loss instead of even trying it on that hamstring, threw for 300 yards, and again, took the Colts apart. So welcome back, Marcus, and playing the Cleveland Browns today. If you own him, odds are that you don't own anybody better than him, at least for this week. Kirk Cousins I really like this week as well. Tyrod Taylor I think is a sneaky play. I think that against some other guys that maybe you would play week to week, I think Tyrod may actually be the better play this week if you're streaming quarterback options. Jameis Winston, Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger. These are all guys that I would play Tyrod Taylor over, at least for 1 week. At the running back position, Le'Veon Bell 1, Ezekiel Elliott 2, Todd Gurley 3. I would have had Fournette in that spot, but unfortunately don't have any confidence, obviously, that he's going to be able to play. Devonta Freeman 4, and I'll have LaShawn McCoy in at 5, although LaShawn McCoy, Melvin Gordon, whichever one you want to have in there in your top 5 is fine. Leonard Fournette would have been my 3, as I said. I think he's a top 5 fantasy play any week that he's playing. Even if he had been limited today, I think he's as among the best bets in the National Football League to score.
Well, that says a lot, even at limited.
Yeah, week to week. He's scored every week. Guys who score, play. And Fournette's a guy that, when he's healthy, obviously he's going to get 20, 25 touches and a touchdown on a week-to-week basis. This week, even if he had only gotten 15, you still expect against the Colts that 15 would have been enough to get him probably 70, 80 yards, a couple catches, and a touchdown. Like, he would have been pretty solid in for that. Now, what do you do with Ivory? If you're a Fournette owner, you should have picked up Ivory midweek this week on waivers. If you're not a Fournette owner, you probably should have picked up Ivory midweek on waivers, just on the off chance that Fournette wasn't going to be able to play because of the style of offense that the Jaguars play. Chris Ivory is a really solid RB2 this week. If Fournette's not going to play, he is playable in all formats. He's probably better than a lot of the second running back options that you've been considering on your roster week to week. So yeah, if Ivory's still out there and you're kind of questionable about what you're doing with that other running back spot, then I think he's definitely worth a pickup if no one's done that already in the league.
Now.
Yeah.
Just realized I do not have anybody on my bench to take over for Fournette.
Melvin Gordon is a fantastic play. At this point, Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara are goes on all formats. PPR, non-PPR, standard leagues, whatever. I think both those guys are playable with the way they're using them in that Saints offense. Jordan Howard. Carlos Hyde is a little bit confusing because he's a week up, week down guy, but it's hard to not have him in a lineup week in, week out. Even going up against the Dallas Cowboys today, he's a pretty good bet week to week to score a touchdown. And welcome back, Adrian Peterson. My goodness. As I said, talking to Dempsey about this on Friday when we were recording our TV show, the Peterson thing came up, and I was like, at some point we just got to stop being surprised by what Adrian Peterson is capable of doing. He is a different,
finally to a machine.
Yeah, he's a different kind of person than most people walking the planet. He's just different. You can't compare him directly to anybody. He's Adrian Peterson. And at some point, we got to stop being surprised when Adrian Peterson does something that makes you go, whoa, like he did last week with the Cardinals.
By the way, I have Kamara and Peterson, so this really helped.
Yeah.
As soon as the trade happened, I was doing jumping jacks.
Both those guys definitely playable. The Packers backfield a little bit more cloudy with Montgomery coming back. If you were going to play one of the guys back there, whether it be Montgomery or Jones, I'd probably lean towards Montgomery, at least in the short term. We have a better idea of what he's going to do as far as fitting into that offense. Wide receivers, Antonio Brown 1, Julio Jones 2, AJ Green 3, Michael Thomas 4, and Larry Fitzgerald for me at 5. Fitz has been the solid rock for that Cardinals offense to this point. Maybe Adrian Peterson even opens up a little bit more for Fitz if he continues to play the way that he has since he put on that Cardinals uniform. I think it's tough to figure out what the Buccaneers offense is going to look like. Jameis Winston is going to play, but he's got the AC joint injury in his throwing shoulder, so how effective is he going to be throwing the deep ball? I don't know, and that's pretty much what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do, is throw the deep ball with Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson. Jackson's a guy that I loved. I tried to grab him in any league that I could this year. I thought he would be a borderline wide receiver 1, kind of a mid-tier wide receiver 2. And when Jameis has been healthy enough to get him the ball, I think he has been. But I don't know about today. I'm having to consider a lot of lineups where I usually have Deshaun Jackson in as to whether I want to do that today. Mike Evans, you're not going to get away from playing that guy. But temper your expectations, too, with the Packers passing game. I don't know what it's going to look like with Hundley. I'd probably actually like Devontae Adams a little bit more than I do Jordy Nelson for at least this week until we see what it's going to look like going forward. Hundley seemed to have more of a connection with Adams for whatever reason last week than he did with Jordy Nelson, so keep an eye on that going forward. Play all your options in the Patriots and Falcons game. I mean, if you got them, play them. And I actually like Hogan more than I like any other receiver outside of Julio Jones in that game. So Hogan is now, at least for now, my top receiving priority on the New England Patriots with the way they're using him.
I assume you would have had Amari Cooper in your top 5, but obviously that game was Thursday night.
In hindsight, yeah, but going into the game, no.
Oh, really?
Cooper hadn't caught more than like 3 passes in a game. He had been terrible.
But Carr was able to, be actually healthy. And I'm playing against somebody that had Cooper in the Jaguars Today League. 44 points for that dude.
My recommendation, if you're a Cooper owner in a league that allows it, trade him. Trade him now. Trade him while his value is as high as it's going to be. That guy has not given you anything through the first 6 games of the year. He gave you something this week. Trade him while the value's high. I mean, I just don't know how dependable he's going to be going forward. He had the big game on Thursday night. He still dropped 4 passes. Just right in his hands. He could have had 300 yards. Like, he could have had a monster. He could have been going after the record books, and Amari Cooper, for whatever reason this year, is just dropping the ball in situations. Now, he happened to catch it a lot. That's why I say trade him. Get some kind of value for Amari Cooper right now if you possibly can. And finally, at the tight end spot this week, Rob Gronkowski 1, Zach Ertz 2, Delaney Walker 3, Evan Ingram 4, and Jordan Reed at 5
Which,
for
by
me.
the way, Delaney Walker, the Titans are optimistic that he will play today with the calf injury.
I know he is questionable coming into the game. Outside of that, the rest of my top 10, Jimmy Graham at 6. We'll go Austin Seferian-Jenkins at 7, Cameron Brate 8, Hunter Henry 9, and Kyle Rudolph for Minnesota coming in at 10.
All right, Tony, when it comes to tight end, you just mentioned Ingram's in your top 5, which thank you for last week, because remember, I had a question for you, and you said play Ingram over Hooper, and I did, and I had to say thank you, because he did obviously a fantastic job as the Giants beat the Broncos in Denver.
Sure, yeah.
So this week, you did say Ingram, but you also mentioned play all of your Atlanta or New England options. So back to the same exact question as last week, Ingram or Hooper? I assume Ingram, right?
Ingram, yeah.
Okay, sweet.
He's still like one of the 2 maybe healthy passing options.
Okay.
And going up against, I get it. It's another tough matchup against Seattle, and I'm curious to see what the Seahawks want to do defending. I was surprised, honestly, that on Sunday Night Football last week, that the Broncos, knowing what the Giants had coming into the game, their top 4 receiving options are out for that week with Sterling Shepard dealing with the ankle injury as well as the 3 guys going on IR. I was a little bit surprised that Aqib Talib basically didn't just cover Ingram. I was surprised that Denver didn't look at it and say, this is the guy that can beat us in the passing game. They didn't do that. They just covered him the way they normally would, and the Giants burned him a little bit on it. The Seahawks just kind of play sides anyway. So I don't think they're going to change anything they do. So there should be something there for the tight end.
And that's why I was a little nervous, because the Seahawks can look back and say, okay, really, all we have to cover is Ingram, and then we're good to go. Blythe, any questions for Tony?
I do. I have a little bit of a quarterback conundrum. Marcus Mariota or Brett Hundley? Because I think that Brett Hundley, this is going to be he's going to look his best all season this game, because I think that other teams will have tape on him after this game. So I'm wondering if Brett Hundley is a play over Mariota this week.
You're getting a little cute there. You're getting a little cute there. No, look, I think that Marcus Mariota
light it up, and then I'll be like, Tony?
Sure, I know. Well, look, it happens, right? It happens. But
I'm cute.
I think Mariota is a borderline top 5 play.
Okay.
And he was able to practice fully all week.
Yeah.
And what about Henry, Derrick Henry? Is he a must play this week, you think?
With DeMarco Murray and his situation coming in, it sounds like if Murray plays, he's going to be pretty limited. So, I think Henry's a go.
Good.
Well, I don't even need to cover the Titans this week. We've covered all of that. But time now to look around the Jaguars division. All right, we are actually going to start with you, Tony, and we will finish with Blythe, since the Jaguars are playing the Colts, Blythe's team, at least for this segment. Tony, tell us about the Texans. They're off this week. Was it a good time for the bye?
I suppose so. Look, I think it is still, week 7, whatever. Bye week. I don't know if there are good or bad weeks for bye weeks. I know you want it later as opposed to earlier, so it seemed like Deshaun Watson was rolling, so maybe from that perspective you didn't want to have the bye at this point if you're the Houston Texans. But they've won. They're doing kind of what the Jaguars are doing. They just happen to start with a loss on the season, so they went loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, and now they're in the bye week. So they're 3-3. That's how they got there. They had the game against the Browns. My goodness, Kevin Hogan was miserable for the Browns. I mean, that's the quarterback situation in Cleveland.
Yeah, they're going back to Deshaun Kaiser.
Is so
and hoping that he
awful.
Escapes the basement with the lowest QBR in all of the league.
Yeah, it's so awful. And it's like you talk about him having the lowest QBR in the league, and it's not close. Like, the gap between him and the next guy on the list is probably the same as the gap between, like, number 31 and 17 in the league is how bad Deshaun Kaiser has been to this point in the season. They obviously played a tough one a couple weeks ago against the Chiefs. Look, I think it's kind of crazy to think that Deshaun Watson is tied for the league lead in touchdown passes. Basically didn't play week 1 against the Jags, got in the game late, is tied for the league lead in touchdown passes, and the re-addition of Will Fuller into that passing game has paid huge dividends for the Texans, who now have 2 options for Watson to even look at. It got hard watching Deshaun Watson in this offense at times before Will Fuller got back because it was one guy. He would drop back, and he was just looking for wherever DeAndre Hopkins was going to be. And if Hopkins was open, he threw it. And if Hopkins wasn't open, he threw it. Like, it was just, that's where he was going with the football. You can remember that game against the Bengals on Thursday night, week 2, where they got the first win. That was all they did. And until Will Fuller got back, that's really all they were still doing. But now it's opening up things a little bit for him. And defensively, hard to tell a whole lot against the Browns, but at least the first week that they've had to play without J.J. Watt and Whitney Mercilus looked pretty good. Now when they get back, next week they go to Seattle. So from a Jags perspective, you're hoping the win-loss deal continues and maybe big time with a road trip out to Seattle, who you get in your own house this year instead of having to go to the Northwest.
Which normally you'd be excited about, home field advantage. However, not so fast, my friends. The Titans took advantage of the spotlight, defeating the Colts at home on Monday Night Football, even though, as Tony mentioned a little bit ago, quarterback Marcus Mariota was clearly limited in his movement due to the hamstring injury. I just mentioned he was a full participant in practice all week, and the Browns are preparing for him to be able to use his legs. But did Marcus Mariota impress y'all with his pocket passing?
Definitely. He didn't even have to run in that Monday Night Football game. It was almost like you expected him to go into the game and to be knocked out rather early, because hamstring injuries are funny and they can sort of stick around with you throughout the entire season. So I didn't expect him to have that much of an impact, and obviously he shut me up pretty quick.
Look, I think it's a bad night for everybody else in the division. If Marcus Mariota is going to learn that he can beat you from the pocket, then the Tennessee Titans have an opportunity to be really, really good in the very near future. If he's going to learn that about himself, he's still been a guy that wanted to run around a lot. If he's going to learn that, this game is actually easier from in here, and if I need to use my legs at times, then I'll use my legs at times. If he becomes that guy, he gets infinitely more dangerous.
Certainly, and let's hope that it's because the Colts defense still is not where they should be.
They stink.
Yeah, even though they revamped the defense.
The rushing defense is about mid-tier for the league. I think they rank 16th for rushing defense.
And Blythe, there was some news this week about Andrew Luck. What is his status and the status of the Colts?
Andrew Luck had a little bit of a setback. We hadn't heard very much at all about it. He had the shoulder surgery in the offseason, and he was expected to start this season, but we know that we're going into week 7 this week, and he hasn't seen the field on a Sunday all season long. But he started throwing with the Colts organization, and he had, I guess, a little bit of a setback. He had some soreness in his shoulder, so they've cut that off. He's going to go, I think they're going to have 2 weeks off of no throwing, and then they're going to try it again. I was listening to Jaguars Today, and you guys had a guy on from
Schultz,
we had Rick Schultz on, and he was talking about how they might bring Andrew Luck in towards the end of the season to just so that new GM can just get a good look at him to know where they stand at the quarterback position, because right now the organization has already said that they're not playing for 2017, they're playing for the 2018 or beyond. So I think that that's a clear sign that they're not going to rush Andrew Luck coming back.
And any injuries that we should be aware of for the Colts today?
Not so much. You do have a little bit of not a concern, but Dante Moncrief, he's probably the number 2 wide receiver. He's been in a contract year, and he's been struggling all year. T.Y. Hilton is obviously their number 1. Most people know that the Colts suffered their Week 6 loss against Tennessee on Monday Night Football, but they were in that game for the majority of it. They did lose 36-22, but most of those points came in, well, the big lead came in the 4th quarter of that game. But I think that there's a couple notes, especially with this Colts team going up against the Jaguars, and we'll get into more of this whenever we get to our keys to a victory. But this Colts passing defense ranks 30th in the league, and Blake Bortles has a really good record against this Colts team. In 4 meetings, 7 touchdowns, no interceptions, a 95+ passer rating. So I think that this is a game that we can sort of see Blake Bortles get back to what he showed us in the Baltimore game.
All right, keys to the victory are coming up next, brought to you by Instant Keys. Stay tuned to 1010XL. Oh my gosh, luckily I stopped looking at the television, but I was very distracted during the very beginning of fantasy because that's when they first started dancing together. Oh my gosh, I love this movie. I forgot. I really need to get the channel changed. Because I always saw myself much more as her than any other good dancing people.
But doesn't she learn how to become a good dancer?
Well, through
alcohol helps.
Well, I don't think it does. I just think it makes us more comfortable. I don't think it helps my actual dancing.
Gosh, what? I was practicing a dance the other day because my girlfriend wants to do a dance. We're not going to have enough time to get this together, but the one with the
mascot just not do it this week.
Dance with the Rolex song with the rolly, rolly, rolly.
Okay.
We were practicing that earlier this
Let's just skip the cuts this week. I had a few, but I can't remember what I wanted.
Okay.
There was nothing that interesting this week anyway.
Y'all see?
That said he loves the show and really appreciate you get 2 guys. So,
aww.
So there you go.
That's
well,
nice.
Thanks, caller. And look, her outfits in this are what people wear now.
Yeah.
It's so funny how the fashion trends come back. A shirt
That's
with a tie
essentially
in it
going to
and
be my
high-waisted
outfit
shorts.
on Saturday for Florida, Georgia.
See? Although she's wearing tights in this specific
And
one.
Keds.
And Keds. Not exactly.
Just swap them out for condoms.
But like that,
yeah,
literally.
that's my outfit for Saturday.
Will you wear Georgia colors?
Just black.
Black.
I tried not to. Well, I used to wear, I've worn a blue shirt before, which was a mistake because my friends have never let me hear the end of it. So I've never done that again. But usually it's a Jaguar shirt, or I've done red and black before just because it's Louisville colors.
Right.
But I don't care either way. I just go for the party.
Yeah.
Yin Yang Twins are playing down at the Strata party, which I'm so excited about. Boom. But you start getting, this is the week where I start getting, the invites to everybody's tailgates, and that's fun too, is just to go to one spot and then spot hop and travel around. We used to take a little red wagon and put a cooler on the wagon and just wheel the wagon everywhere to different tailgate spots.
Now they have those motorized cooler like things. Those are funny. People will I used to go to see my parents in Lot J. Now I ignore that and avoid that entire lot because it's
like a frat
overrun
lot, right?
by fraternities and sororities. And like it used to be fine. Yeah, there was a lot of them, but it was just normal. Well, one year they decided like to bring in like extreme speakers so that it like if you get anywhere near the tailgate you like cannot think or hear. It's so loud, and they bring a stripper pole so they can have fun all they want. I just don't want to be around it.
I've been to a tailgate that had one, and there was guys that would climb up to the top of the stripper pole and put like $20, and then different girls would go up and try to get the $20, and they weren't actually stripping on the pole, they were just trying to climb up there to get the money. And then they had ice luge too with like 3 different spouts, and I'm like, I'm not putting my mouth on that. All these nasty people out here.
No.
Like, I have my liquor over here, thank you very much. But it was entertaining to watch.
Yeah, well that's why I used to love the people watching of the fraternities and sororities, because I would love to watch like and see what the girls wear and how drunk they get.
Yep.
But once they brought in those speakers, I was like, okay, this is giving me a headache within the first like 5 minutes. I can't do it.
There's this one time I was at, I think it was the Strata tailgate, and this girl was walking around, no underwear, The skirt, she was obviously on a bunch of drugs.
No.
Her skirt was pulled all the way up. You could see and she's just walking around.
Oh my god.
Ridiculous. There was a guy like holding her hand too, like walking her around, like parading her. Like, oh, this is the girl that's with me. Yikes.
You proud of that?
I guess he was. He was using her as more like a showboat.
A trophy. Alright, whatever. To each their own, I guess.
Poor girl, especially in the age of like camera phones and stuff. Like everybody immediately like takes out their phone and starts snapping pictures, and it's like, somebody help this girl. Oh my gosh. You missed a good party the other night.
And that's the reason that baby's getting trained to dance, is because the girl can't dance because she had the abortion. That's how the whole, that's the genesis of her learning.
30 seconds, yo.
Thanks. And then she laughs because he tickles her. Why have I seen this movie so many times?
Since I was a kid, and I don't even think I was allowed to watch it as a kid. It's like all Disney movies for me.
Here we go.
Thank you. So I heard the song Friday morning. It's become my new favorite song. And there's a reason that it applies to this Jacksonville Jaguars team. And that's why. Up, down. The song's all about different things you can take up, down. That was a bobber in a pond. This is Morgan Waller. He sings the song The Way I Talk, which is a song that's made its way to radio. But then Florida Georgia Line's also in this song. But it talks about, you know, Jack Daniels bottle going up, down, here.
As an audible, ugh. Can't stand Florida Georgia Line. Even though I sing a lot of their songs, I just can't, I hate myself that I like the songs. I don't know why.
All right then. But I thought that song was perfect. And what's funny is, so I'm listening to it on the way to work Friday morning, and I went to add it to our playlist, and it said it was already in there, and I was like, Blythe and Tony would not have added this song. What in the world? And so when I get to work, I open Spotify on my computer, and I realize it was producer Matt who added his very first song.
Oh, very nice.
And he stole it from me, but that's perfectly fine.
I was trying to think
Matt,
of...
you're a country guy?
Big fan. I actually went to the FGO concert.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was
Well, I
trying
just
to...
made fun of you to ignore her.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what band that I sing along to that I secretly hate. Like, I'm trying to figure out where that category of band, like who that is in my...
Well,
like,
I think with Florida Georgia Line in particular for me is that I started liking them, and then I got introduced to Spotify, and Spotify has spoiled me. So now I'm like a music snob, and I detest listening to Florida Georgia Line, and I think I blame Spotify. I don't know. There's just so much of a variety of
Stop playing it on my channel. Thumbs down.
Well, and with Spotify, there's not that option, but you can just create playlists. But I think Florida Georgia Line is fun. I didn't go to the concert because I knew like Nelly was going to be there too, and that's not necessarily my style of music. So
he's in some trouble too, as of recently.
Oh, interesting.
Trouble.
Anyway, I like.
You know what I'm
I
talking
just
about?
like
I do.
They're like fun party songs. What did Nelly do?
I think he's been involved with some underage girls. Very underage, like 14, 15 years old.
Oh my gosh.
That's the charges right now. I think one of the girls is going to drop the charges though. So, and I say girls, and I mean girls, not women.
Yikes. All right, the Jaguars are seeking their first win in Indianapolis since a 22-17 victory on September 23rd, 2012. How did the Jaguars defeat the Colts?
Now the keys to the game on 1010XL, brought to you by Instant Keys, fast, professional, honest locksmith service.
Blythe, kick us off. What is the first key to a Jaguars victory?
I think it's establishing the run with Chris Ivory. He had a really great game last week. It was the first time that we've really seen him sort of take a lead as far as the rushing game is concerned. He had a career-high 9 catches, including a touchdown versus the Rams. I think use Ivory as your workhorse because it will open up the passing game for Blake Bortles, who historically, we've said this earlier in the show, that he has passed for 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions with a 95-plus passer rating against the Colts in 4 meetings. But in the Jaguars' 3 wins this season, he has just a total of 16 second-half passes. So I think that this is the game that they want to let Blake Bortles sort of open it up a bit if his skills prove to be there today. As we know with Blake Bortles, he's a little bit up and down each week.
Hence the song, Up, Down. All right, Tony.
I'm still trying to figure out what band I sing along to.
Oh, you know what mine is? Rascal Flatts.
Okay.
I know almost every Rascal Flatts song. I don't really like Rascal Flatts, but because they come on the radio, I can sing along to them. But
That's
don't
another,
necessarily
definitely Rascal Flatts. I like them much more than Florida Georgia Line now. Sorry,
know.
Matt.
Maybe Hootie and the Blowfish. Like I know a
You
lot
don't
of.
like Hootie?
I don't like them at all.
Oh, okay, but you can sing.
But I know
those
like
songs.
the 3 songs by Hootie and the Blow. I can sing it all. Like and I will. Like if I'm out and the song's on, I'm singing along. I'm like I hate this song, but I know the whole thing. Like one of those types of
Let
things.
her
Taylor
cry.
Swift's new music is trash. I have listened to her for years and loved her for years, but her new album, she's just pumping out the singles because I think that they're all 3 of them have been trash.
I saw that it came out, but I have not listened
She's already
to it.
released 3 singles off of her new album because I think the first 2 have been doing so poorly. It's terrible.
Ouch. That
Back
stinks
to
for Taylor
football.
Swift. I can't sing along to any Taylor Swift song
I
Good for
love
you.
Taylor
that
Swift.
I'm aware of.
Right.
I might
The
be able
Jaguars
to.
beat the Colts.
I might be singing along to something and be like,
Play
someone be like,
Taylor
this
Swift.
is Taylor Swift. Oh,
This is
I'm
what you
sorry.
came here for.
But look, I think keys, right? I think going along the Bortles thing, yeah, it is a key, right? When they win, it's usually because they get something out of the passing game. Something. They don't have to get a bunch, but they get something going out of the passing game usually, in 2 out of the 3 wins at least. And it's been such a difficult team to figure out exactly who they are. So, look, I think it is about still being you. And even with Fournette out, I think it's about establishing Ivory, who the reason that you have Ivory on this team is because he gives you that compliment to Leonard Fournette. And I think this week he needs to obviously be the man carrying the load for you. And I think that's okay for a week, especially against his Colts team, which you should be able to do that against. So establish who you are. If you get something out of the passing game too, okay. The Colts don't have anything, it doesn't appear to really threaten you with offensively. So being who you are, and that identity of being, we're going to be the team that runs the ball when we want to run the ball, we're going to play defense, that should be enough against the Indianapolis Colts today. So don't try to be something that you're not. It ought to be enough today to just be the Jaguars team that you want to be, to beat the Indianapolis Colts.
I will say continue to create explosive plays because the Colts have allowed 34 completions of at least 20 yards. That is the most in the NFL. The next is 28. 34 of those. The Jaguars should be able to scheme something up where they can get a big chunk of yardage. Wide receiver Marquise Lee has been listed as questionable, but it looks like he is going to play today. Originally, he had a sore ribs injury, and now it's a knee injury. So Marquise Lee is banged up. I know he is ready for the bye week, as is Leonard Fournette, who won't be able to go. I'll also say, remind the Colts why your nickname is Saxonville. The Colts have given up 18 sacks in the first 6 games, which is the 4th most in the league, but they were able to stay in that Titans game Monday night because they did not allow any sacks. If quarterback Jacoby Brissett beats the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think you're going to have a large portion of the fan base screaming as to why they didn't go get him in the offseason.
Definitely, and I think with Brissett, though, this is to sort of piggyback off your point, Lauren, this is the game that I think that the pass rush is going to feast because Jacoby Brissett, he holds the ball longer. Only 2 quarterbacks in the league hold the ball longer than Brissett. It's like close to 3 seconds is when he holds it. And with the Jaguars defense, they lead the league in sacks, and they're doing it without the blitz. Only a handful of teams blitz less often than they do. And Calais Campbell, who's been a star on this Jaguars defense, he ranks 2nd in the league with 8 sacks. And so facing off against Jacoby Brissett, who holds the ball for a long time, I think Calais Campbell is he's gonna feast today.
And Hayes on the show, we'll talk to him in a little bit, Hayes Carline. He said the Jaguars need to dial up the blitz at some point because they're getting too predictable. Tony, do you agree with that?
I think you are what you are. Like, I don't know that it's effective. So I don't know how much you need to change it. I think there are game situations where, yeah, you can. because you feel like the situation in the game calls for it. But I don't even know with this defense that being predictable is necessarily bad. So what if you can predict what the secondary is going to do? Beat it. You can't, right? So who cares if you can predict exactly what they want to do with their coverage? That's what the really, really good defenses were very predictable, right? I mean, it's not like anyone didn't know what the Ravens were going to do. It's not like anyone didn't know what the Seahawks were doing the last couple of years. You knew it. You couldn't do anything about it. They were just able to do what they wanted because they dictated. And I think the Jaguars are good enough on that side of the ball to be that kind of defense, which is what they've shown themselves to be through the first 6 weeks of the season. So could they mix in the blitz a little bit more? Yeah, but I don't think they have to be effective. They're already effective doing it. Maybe they pick and choose some more spots. It's not something that Todd Wash has ever done a lot of, by the way. He's just not a guy who calls a lot of blitzes. They play what they play, and they think it's good enough to beat guys. And right now they got the pieces in place where they're probably right that it is good enough to beat guys. I think, as we said last week talking about the Jaguars passing game, when the Jaguars passing game shows up, it's going to be a surprise. It just is. Like the weeks where it's good, it's going to be like, oh, that's a pleasant surprise that the passing game was good this week. It's not like we couldn't go through every week and say, if they throw the ball this week, well, yeah. With the way that they play defense and run the ball, if they throw it, then yeah, they're a playoff team. We all know that. Like when they're able to throw the ball, they're going to beat a lot of teams. They're going to beat good teams when they can throw the ball. When they can't throw the ball, they're going to be an average team. Like that's who they are at this point. So when the pass game comes, it'll be a surprise. And on the other side of that, when a team has success throwing the ball, it'll be a surprise. And I don't think today is a day where that's going to happen. They've done a pretty good job against T.Y. Hilton the last couple of times they matched up against them anyway. Now you add A.J. Boye into the mix, that pass rush that they have. I think it would be stunning if the Colts were able to beat this Jaguars team because they got something done through the air. And as limited as it feels like they are trying to run the ball right now, it's a really good matchup for the Jaguars defensively coming into this game against a quarterback that wants to hold it a long time, for a secondary that makes you hold it a long time, and a run game that isn't really working. This feels like a feast matchup for this defense.
All right, I got two more. Don't suck on third down. Those are words that Bortles actually used this week regarding third down and 4 to 6 yards.
Again,
he was right.
Pass game. They don't have one.
Bortles has a 50.9 passer rating on third down, and the Jaguars are 26 of 79 overall.
And to piggyback off that, too, the Colts are just as bad on converting on third downs. They were 2 for 9 last week against the Titans, and they convert 38% of the time versus the Jaguars at 32% of the time on third downs.
32% is just
abysmal.
Not good. And this last one is just because last week a lot of people blamed the referees for certain points in that game. And I agree because Aaron Colvin had a touchdown. The refs decided to blow the whistle too soon. And also there was pass interference on Marquise Lee. And then when they didn't call that ended up creating the blocked punt. So I understand the frustration with the referees. So don't let the refs decide the game. Jeff Triplett is the official today, and the head official, and both Jalen Ramsey and Malik Jackson were ejected the last time he called a Jaguars game. So don't let the refs be the reason that you lose.
Yeah, but not unjustifiably so. They should have been thrown out of that game. It's not like the referee was just singling those guys out. And yeah, they should have let the play run on the Aaron Colvin return. That was dumb. I don't know how at this point that referees don't just let those plays go. You couldn't have seen that he was down because he wasn't. So just let the play go and get it right afterwards. If you have to say, oh, he was down, then he's down. It's not that big a deal. And the Marquise Lee thing, yeah, I agree. It was pass interference. It was probably pass interference on the drive before, too, right? Like, that one kind of evens itself out to me.
I agree.
And the refs sort of gave a few gimme plays to the Jaguars later in that game, I think because
they were making up for the Colvin non-touchdown. Yeah, absolutely. All right, time now to take a look at the guys who are banged up.
The personal injury attorneys of Farah and Farah present this injury update. Farah and Farah, protecting you and your family since 1979.
All right, let's start with the Colts, where we know Andrew Luck is not going to be available to play for the Colts anytime soon with the setback with his shoulder, so we'll see how much longer it takes for him to get back out on the practice field and potentially out on the field. Maybe we see him for the second matchup this year. Who knows? We'll see, but we know we're going to see Jacoby Brissett today. Robert Turbin, the backup running back, is also out with an elbow injury that was pretty gruesome if you saw it on Monday night.
Thankfully, it did not.
Did not look good, so he's going to be out today. Marlon Mack, most likely the rookie out of South Florida, going to be given the opportunity to step into that second running back role, which is a good and bad thing. He's obviously a much more athletic threat than Robert Turbin has been at that spot, but it is a rookie that'll be stepping in there. Inside linebacker Anthony Walker's listed as out with a hamstring injury. They got a couple guys questionable. Kelly Ryan, who was able to fully participate in the walkthrough on Friday, is listed as questionable. Their center, TJ Green, at safety with a hamstring injury, also questionable, and tight end Daryl Daniels, questionable on the injury report. For the Jaguars side of things, Brandon Linder out for the third week in a row as he deals with an illness. We're still not sure what that illness is, and we probably never will be unless Brandon Linder wants us to know. It's a medical issue. He doesn't have to tell anybody. The team doesn't have to tell anybody. So we may never know exactly what's going on with Brandon Linder that's caused him to miss 3 games. Outside of that, Tashawn Gibson listed as questionable. He was limited all week in practice, but obviously he's expected to play. Marquise Lee wasn't able to practice until Friday during the walkthrough, which is obviously a light practice. He was limited in that one. He's officially listed as questionable. It sounds like he's likely going to play today. And Leonard Fournette, as we've all heard last night coming into today, not expected to go with that ankle injury. So Chris Ivory expected to be the lead back, and maybe it's the first week that TJ Yeldon is active for this team too.
You would expect that, and you would think that he will be the third down back for today. We will head up to Indy next and chat with Kevin Bowman from 1070 The Fan to learn how the Colts tailgate on 1010XL. Finally, a last name that I wasn't worried about pronouncing.
Is erectile dysfunction making moments of sexual intimacy a thing of the past? The urologists at the McKeever Men's Health Clinic in Coloplast have solutions to help you feel like yourself again. Schedule an appointment at one of McKeever's 6 area locations to learn more about a long-lasting healing solution from Coloplast. Or for more information, visit our website at McKeeverClinic.com. That's MCIVER, or call 355-6583. McKeever Men's Health Clinic in Coloplast. Innovators in urological care. You want to drive a luxury import vehicle and not pay that new sticker price? Tony's Auto Sales of Jacksonville can make it happen. Right now, every car on the lot is $1,000 off, no exceptions. They get new inventory every weekend, always service what they sell. Need financing? Tony has you covered. Browse the inventory at Tony'sAutoSalesOfJacksonville.com or stop by the new location, 1/4 mile west of Southside Boulevard and 8908 Atlantic Boulevard next to IHOP. Tony's Auto Sales of Jacksonville.
Okay, Kevin Bowen.
Did I say Bowman?
Bowen? Bowman? Let me look at his Twitter profile. I love the people that I can send DMs to and not have to follow them. Saves from like unfollowing.
Oh yeah, you put Kevin Bowman in the email, but it is Kevin Bowen.
Bowen?
Yeah.
That's what I have written in Evernote. Yeah, Bowen. B-O-W-E-N.
I copied and pasted. Oh well, I don't think he was on the line yet, so he won't know that we said Bowman, and no one when we come back will remember that we said Bowman.
How about Louisville almost losing to Florida State yesterday? That was a freaking nail-biter.
I just don't understand how Florida State was a 7-point favorite in that game.
Were they favored? I didn't think they did.
Yes. I picked Louisville. I don't understand why Petrino didn't go for the field goal.
I left my house. It was like a 10-point lead, and Florida State was struggling. I was like, okay, about to go out to this Oktoberfest thing. I was like, I think we're good. And then by the time I got to my brother's house,
Oh, so you didn't see the roughing call?
no.
That was
And I was
BS.
like, what the happened? And so I'm pulling up the ESPN app, and I'm trying to watch like the last few plays and I guess not the strip, but the fumble. And I'm like, what the hell?
Oh yeah, they gave it back.
Yeah, they did.
Like trying to run that option play down there with a guy who shouldn't be running. Was like the football gods giving it back after that crap roughing call. Like that was one of those where there was literally nothing else he could do. He's already contacting the guy when he throws it. The quarterback's falling on his back.
Correct. The quarterback had the football when he hit him.
Yeah, I mean,
therefore
it's
legal.
not rough. It looks rough, but you're allowed to hit the guy still.
Of course, he had the football. It's not like it was late.
No, that was terrible. Some Florida State fan was all mad at me for saying it.
Oh please.
Because I tweeted something like, my favorite part of football is officials extending games, just to keep them competitive. And he was like, "You're telling me you didn't think that was roughing?" No,
Absolutely, it wasn't roughing.
And based on the fact that you're, based on the fact that you have Noel in your name, you might be a little biased about whether or not that was roughing. And he was like, "Just because I got Noel in my name doesn't mean I'm biased." And I'm like, honestly, it might mean that.
It definitely means that.
And it doesn't matter anyway because your coach blew it by running an option.
Yeah. Correct. It was a great game. I mean, interesting at least.
Playing at BC on Friday?
Mm-hmm.
That's dumb.
Friday?
Yeah, Friday night.
Why Friday?
ACC
Why is
plays a
college
lot
football?
of games on Friday.
Yeah, is that new?
ACC and
or-
Pac-12. ACC's been doing it for at least 5 years.
But a game like that on a Friday? I guess maybe if they want prime time?
Yeah, I mean, Boston College is not very good.
They did a little last week.
45-42. Y'all ain't got no defense. You let Florida
Petrino's
State
not-
put up the most points they've scored all year.
We whooped that ass last year.
Yep.
62 points. We still got away with the victory, so that leaves me bragging
63.
rights.
Don't leave off a point. 63-20. I want you to get all of them. Make them suffer.
Okay, thank you.
See, he put Bowman too. Bowen.
Bowen.
Is it Bowen?
Bowen, yeah,
Bowen,
sorry, my bad.
Okay, got it.
That's fine. But don't worry, we won't say that.
Here we go.
WJXL AM Jacksonville Beach, WJXL FM Jacksonville Beach. The 1010XL Kickoff Show, fueled by Sawyer Gas, presented by Coastal Equipment on 1010XL 92.5 FM.
Blythe, we're about to head up to Indianapolis. For fans up there, what's the latest with weather before they head inside the dome?
It's going to be a mostly cloudy day throughout the day, and it's going to stay in the early to mid 70s. I don't think they're going to crack over 73 degrees for the entire game, but they play in a dome, so that doesn't really matter as far as temperature-wise is concerned. But for those fans that are tailgating, it's going to be maybe a little warm for them up north. I would think that's a little chilly for us down here, low 70s. It is, at least it is for me.
Let's head up to Indianapolis now.
Wonder what the other guys are doing at their tailgate? Let's go outside the 904 with Blythe.
When you work in this industry and it comes time to prepare for a game, you try to compare each team's strengths against the opponent's weaknesses. But when looking at the Jags-Colts matchup this week, I couldn't help but notice how polar opposite they are in their present form. This Colts team has a clear #1 wide receiver in T.Y. Hilton, an older but experienced running back in Frank Gore, and an often hurt Andrew Luck, and a pass defense that's the worst in the league, or one of the worst in the league, I should say. This is another one of those games that the Jaguars should win, but after the Colts played the Titans tough on this past Monday Night Football, we know this division rival won't be a layup for this Jaguars team that could be caught looking ahead towards the bye week. He's covered the Colts since 2012, and joining us now to talk about this matchup is writer and broadcaster Ryan Bowen of ESPN's 1070 The Fan. Now, Ryan, before we get into the on-the-field matchup, sort of take us to Indianapolis, set the scene for game day. What are you smelling on the grill? What's the music playing? Games, drinks, all that good stuff. What does it feel like before a Colts game?
Well, it feels like it's a must-win. Honestly, it's downtown Indianapolis. It's got to be a must-win. It's actually a pretty nice day in downtown Indy from a standpoint for fall weather, but I expect like I said, at this point in the season, the Colts are in the AFC South, given how tougher the schedule is for the second half of the year. This is a game that the Colts have to have.
What about the Colts sort of mindset? With the Jaguars in particular, we sort of came into this season thinking that it was going to be a lost season. And then with, obviously a few wins, then you start thinking about playoffs. But the Colts, on the other hand, they said that they're already looking towards 2008. How are the fans feeling as far as this season is concerned? Do they feel like it's a lost season already?
I think it's up and trending in that direction. I think fans are extremely frustrated about obviously Andrew Luck hasn't been out there for the first 6 games. So the Colts had the second half of the last 5 weeks, and we're just 2 or 3 of those games. It's going think that's the most frustrating element. And there's been opportunities, there's been chances. There was a lead in Seattle on Monday Night Football. There's a lead in Tennessee on Monday Night Football earlier this week in the second half. And then fourth quarter's been a disaster. Colts been outscored 85-22.
Wow.
In the fourth quarter this year. And like I said, the AFC South is still the AFC South. It's 500 football teams and the 2 and 4 Colts, excuse me. So that I think is the most frustrating part is that chances, opportunities to take early control or at least be a serious contender in this division have been there, even with one sideline. And yet here the team is right now, looking more like a top 10 draft team in 2018.
How much of the offense is Jacoby Brissett running at this point?
I would say close to 100, maybe 90-ish, 85. If you have to have week 2, it would have been, I think, a specific game plan that was just installed for him. It's honestly been really, really impressive what he's done. I know he started his career down there in Florida, then transferred in state. He's a pretty skinny, only 23 years old. If you guys watch him today, you can run right out. Calm, very poised. He doesn't look like a backup quarterback. When I think of backup quarterback, there's a frantic pace and a lot of pre-snap issues. You don't see that with Jacoby Brissett. He's very impressive for a young quarterback. And without him, honestly, it won't be able to get there.
Kevin Bowen from 1070 The Fan joining us on the Kickoff Show. Kevin, when it comes to the Colts defense, it was completely revamped, but still giving up a lot of points. We saw 36 to the Titans Monday night. What is the defense missing still?
The defense is missing just the elimination of big plays. That's been a huge issue for this team. Actually, I think they lead the league in big plays given up during 2017. And I actually think this matchup from a Jacksonville very traditional run game to kind of, old school again. I'm not trying to and listeners, but with the Colts struggle this year, Tennessee and Seattle, it was read option attack where they haven't been as disciplined. They've given up some big plays, both in the air and on the ground. And this revamped front seven, like you mentioned, I think this is a much better equipped offense for the Colts to handle. They've actually done a really nice job of starting running back this year. They've given up 27 yards per carry, and with Leonard Fournette banged up if he gives it a go, I do think on paper this is kind of a decent matchup for a totally different looking Colts team.
What are the expectations that fans are going to get to see Andrew Luck take the field this season?
Well, that's a big hit on Wednesday. Andrew Luck shoulder soreness, cortisone shot is what he had earlier in the week. He had only been practicing for 2 weeks. It really hasn't been doing much. 5 to 6 reps, kind of scout team work. So I think right now it's just really up in the air whether Andrew Luck plays in 2017 or not. Comes up in a bye week here in 3 weeks, and I would not expect him on the field before that. So yeah, if you ask this on Monday, I would say probably a pretty good chance he plays by early November, mid-November. Now, no idea just where he's at and where his recovery is going to be when he gets back. I do think he needs to play in 2017 because I think it's so vital for the Colts. See what he looks like if he's healthy. Evaluate kind of what his status is going to be on his 2018 because you paid this guy $140 million last year, and Jacoby Brissett could be a great trade chip of the Colts. And I think you need to know just where your franchise quarterback is at going into what should be his prime year.
Obviously, look, Marlon Mack is a rookie, so maybe they didn't want to put too much on his plate too soon. But when they've been willing to give him carries and touches in games, it feels like he's been really effective. Has there been any frustration with how they've used Mack up to this point? Obviously, his role should expand now with Turbin being injured.
I would say outside of the second half, frustrating part that fans have had about this season in recent weeks is the Marlon Mack. Because Colts haven't had a player like that in a long time. Runner. Now, to be fair, it has been kind of feast or famine with Mack. He's got 4 carries over 20 yards, and he's got a dozen carries of no gain or negative yards. But that threat is there. Like you said, Robert Turbin now in injured reserve. Marlon Mack is your guy behind Frank Moore. The fact that he only got 2 carries all Monday night and none in the final 50 minutes of the game
Kevin, as of for off the field, when it comes to tailgating, what does it look like outside of Lucas Oil Stadium leading up to the game?
I got an area called Touchdown Town, which is just across kind of the main gate of Lucas Oil Stadium, which is always kind of a happening place for live pregame radio. Downtown Indianapolis is really one of the best kind of downtowns, frankly, for sports with Lucas Oil Stadium and Bankers Life Fieldhouse. Pacers play both very defined in the downtown area, so easily walkable bars, tailgates and kind of the bigger parking lots around. And now, of course, everybody's walking the stadium early before game. Peyton Manning statue that went up a couple weeks ago, so that's kind of right on the corner of South and Capitol Street, which is the main entrance to Lucas Oil Stadium. So, like I said, from a similar standpoint, constantly at Lucas Oil, so I expect the tailgate to be out. Of course, I hear a little increase in people in the crowd. Like last home game, again, you had the Peyton Manning statue, you had the retirement ceremony, you had a lot of build up for that. This week, I think you get tickets and stuff up for $8 or $9.
Oh, wow.
So I think kind of the fan interest is starting to wane a little bit. And if the Colts don't get this one, they go to Cincinnati next week, to Houston the week after that, home to Pittsburgh for the bye. Let's break this down. We're looking at 3-7, 2-8.
From an organizational standpoint, I'm a big fan of Carly Ursay, for those who don't know, daughter of owner Jim Ursay, and she's arguably one of the most powerful women in the NFL. I know she used to lead the league with initiatives for their women's club and things like that, but how involved is she with the team currently? From the outside looking in, I imagine she has a pretty powerful role within the organization.
Yeah, from a day-to-day standpoint, she's the one kind of running the show. She's the oldest Ursay daughter, and Jim Ursay, of course, I think kind of the huge decisions in terms of Andrew Luck signing a $140 million deal and stuff like that. But again, from a day-to-day standpoint, it's Carly Ursay Gordon and then Kaylin Ursay, the youngest Ursay daughter. There's three of them. They kind of run the show. I'm not sure how similar it is to the Khan family. I know that Tony Khan, I believe, is one of Shad's kids. So
Yes.
I know the Khans and the Ursays are very close as well. I remember last year in London being over there. They're two very close families from an ownership standpoint. So yeah, for Carly being, I believe she's right around her mid-30s. She definitely has a lot of control up there with any, I think, young woman in the NFL. And, I think one day it will be kind of her operation when Jim Ursay passes.
With the Jaguars kind of being, at times, the thorn in the side of the Colts, even when Peyton Manning was there, those games were always tough games with the way that the Jags played defense there in the mid-2000s. Where is the rivalry right now between these two clubs from a Colts perspective?
But I mean, it's kind of crazy how Jacksonville played against Indianapolis early in recent years. Colts won 16 straight divisional games from the end of 2012 to 2015. And if you guys remember this game, it was the Denver game down in Jacksonville in 2015. Matt Hasselbeck was the Colts starting
Oh,
quarterback.
sure do.
And Jacksonville beat the Colts like a drum. I think put up 51, I want to say, 16. And since then, Jacksonville has been really good against the Colts. I think Jason Myers has a couple of deals, a little bit of game up here. Last year, I would say, and in overtime. And outside of that, you look at portal numbers. 7 touchdowns, no picks in the last 4 games against the Colts. I mean, to Colts fans, I think they would have liked more of it. Pretty solid quarterback. Yeah, Jacksonville really rough position. And all of a sudden, the Colts are no longer that dominant team that they had down to just over 6 in the last 10 games. And, I think people respect how Jacksonville built a great draft. Successful create the Colts did not have the last handful of years. I think when you look at the AFC South, this is the division that's going to deliver more competitive football going forward with how it keeps it built.
And Kevin, lastly, how do you think that this Colts team can beat the Jaguars and vice versa?
Kind of break it up a little bit. I think you asked me how I think this is going. I am actually picking the Colts 23-17. I know Jacksonville is favored, but like I said earlier, I think it's a good matchup from a defensive standpoint for the Colts to try and stop their run game. Leonard Fournette a little bit banged up. I think the Colts can force the Colts to beat them and
Both sides could agree with that on the must-win aspect. Well, big thanks to Kevin Bowen of ESPN's 1070 The Fan for joining us. To find more of his work, you can check him out at MS Communications and on Twitter at Kevin Bowen. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, you too, Kevin. We will go behind enemy lines with Jaguars beat reporter Hayes Carlin and hear his one-on-one with Jaguars tight end Mercedes Lewis. That's all next on 1010XL.
Yeah, I had Ryan written throughout my entire breakdown, and I don't know why. Was it Ryan last week? No, I don't think Ryan was last week.
I don't remember who it was last week, but I don't think it was a Ryan.
I had to even change it in my out, too.
Let's see. We talked to, it was Ryan last week. Ryan Karcha.
That's what it was.
I have that he's at KBowen1070 on Twitter.
For God's sakes.
But whatever. He's like, I'm never coming on with these people again. It's all right. His phone was breaking up. And it's so strange how every single week there's at least one person who doesn't hear us. That doesn't make sense to me.
Damn. And it's K-Bowen.
Just shoot him a note and be like, sorry.
Idiot. Dummy.
I was writing this after I went to Oktoberfest.
No, before. I wrote it before. I think I was rushing. That's why I was trying to go. So for those of you who possibly just heard the interview, actually it's KBowen1070 on Twitter. Not Kevin Bowen. Screwed that one up. Oh, goodness. So what happens now with the rest of your duties? Are you able to do them without a laptop the rest of today? That's good. That's good.
I'm writing some updates right now, so I can email them to myself. Is it really the Pats and the Falcons are the premier matchup of today? I don't know if anybody else is like a super interesting matchup.
The Cardinals-Rams in London, I think, should be interesting.
Is that at 10 a.m. or 9 a.m.?
No, they're a 1.
A 1?
Yeah, they're playing. I mean, that's 6 o'clock over there.
Yeah.
Weird.
So they're getting Sunday night football.
We did that the first 2 years, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't try the morning stuff until last year with anybody, I don't think.
Yeah.
I wonder how the turnout is compared to if it's morning over there versus night.
Well, it's 1 over there when they kick off.
Is it
morning
a
here.
1? So 6 p.m. here. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
It's an afternoon game when they kick off early. So it's like a 6 o'clock kick today for them local. London's weird. They got all those Premier League teams are all in the city.
And I guess that was was it a schedule conflict today or something that one of the teams is playing at Wembley?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Are they Wembley today?
Or no, is it?
No, today's Twickenham.
I can't keep London straight.
I only looked it up earlier for something coming up later in the show. Our predictions. Not that it matters. I can't really tip my hand as to what I predicted, so I don't know why I said it like that. Like, it was very surreptitious information over here.
Cincinnati-Pittsburgh might be decent. Division rivalry game. But that Atlanta-New England. Ooh, Washington-Philly?
Yeah, that's a decent one if Washington's any good.
Just under 30 seconds, guys, and Hayes is ready to go.
Awesome.
Great, thank you. Time now to check in with Hayes Carline, Jaguars beat reporter up in Indianapolis. Hayes, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
We are fantastic, thanks. All right, the news came out last night that Jaguars running back Leonard Fournette is probably not going to play today. What will the Jaguars offense look like without him?
Not good. You know, I think it's hard to envision a ton of success without Leonard. But what we'll see is, you know, I think there is, you know, still a chance. We won't get the official word, you know, until it happens come out at 11:30. So, you know, I think it's not looking good, but, you know, hopefully, you know, he tested on the field and it feels pretty good. And, I mean, I'd be tempted to play him even if it was, you know, just a handful of snaps, just in more of a decoy role. I mean, that's how important I think his presence is. But if he's, you know, really a shell of himself, then obviously you don't want to do further damage. But it's disappointing if he can't play, and it's a good thing they didn't put him back in the game. Doug Marone said, you know, really that, you know, had the game had it been earlier, you know, he was cleared to return, but obviously could have done further damage to it. And you know, here we are on the following Sunday, and it looks like he may not be able to play.
Hayes, it certainly seems unlikely that Fournette's going to play. So let's assume, at least for now, that Fournette's not available. Does anything change offensively for you as far as the game plan for this one against the Colts, even without Fournette?
I think they're going to have to try to do something against the Colts in the past game. I mean, it is a weakness of Indianapolis. Now, they did have Monte Davis out to start the season, and they've got a young group of players that are getting better. Malik Hooker is getting better at free safety. So I'm not sure they're as bad as their numbers would indicate. But I still think they're pretty bad. And, you know, I don't have a lot of confidence in the Jaguars passing game. But at some point, these guys are professionals. And if you're going to continue to pay them millions of dollars, then at some point you have to ask them to shoulder some of the load. So I think, you know, I'm sure you'll still see a healthy dose of Chris Ivory, you know, probably somewhere between 15 and 20 touches. Obviously, DJ Yeldon should be in the mix for 5 to 7 touches. So I still think it'll be, you know, they'll try and balance it out as much as they can. But, you know, I would still think the Colts will play run heavy, even without Fournette, just because of how little Bortles has been doing. And the Jaguars have to make the Colts pay for that. So I think as much as they don't want it to be the game plan, I think they sort of do need to tell Blake, you know, hey, this is your game. You're going to need to go out there and, you know, shred these guys a little bit. I mean, I don't think they're going to have to score more than 24 to win this game. But the way the passing game has looked lately, I'm not sure they can score at all.
Hayes, with this team in particular, with Blake Bortles, 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in the past 4 meetings against the Colts, any chance we see a quarterback performance similar to the Baltimore game against the Colts today?
I do think there's a chance. I mean, Bortles is not an awful player. I mean, he's subpar, and he needs to be replaced. But he does have those moments, and Baltimore was a prime example. And so, you know, Blake is sort of due for one of those games where he does look pretty good. It's just not consistent enough. You can't have your franchise quarterback play well every 4 games. It's not sustainable. You know, but he is due. It's not like Blake Bortles is, you know, the kind of player where he just never shows you anything.
The Jaguars faced quarterback Jacoby Brissett in training camp when he was third string for the Patriots. Hayes, is that familiarity any advantage for this defense?
Yeah, the Jaguars defense downplayed it this week. And it makes some sense. Brissett was going with the threes, so a lot of the guys on the Jaguars that were going against him, didn't make the team. And he's in a totally different system now. So I think it can't hurt, but I don't know that it's I don't know that it's a great asset for the Jaguars in this matchup. I think they're going to, rely more on how Brissett is looked on film and things like that. So, we'll see. It'll be interesting to talk to them again about it, particularly if they play well. Whether it did, because it could be just, athletes trying to downplay something. Be a little interesting to see, how they felt about it after the game, after they've actually had a chance to go up against them. But I think if they shut down Jacoby Brissett, force them into a lot of miscues. Today it'll be more what they were able to, see off of this film with the Colts more than what they picked up on the practice field. But it is really interesting. It's a very unique situation to go against a guy in joint practices that is in the first half of the season, starting against you, a quarterback for a totally different team and a team in your division.
Yeah, you don't often see those kind of things because you don't see quarterbacks traded a whole lot in the National Football League, especially in season. But look, the Jags offense getting ready for this one. We've mentioned the passing game. They need to get something out of it. The premier option in that passing game is Marquise Lee with Allen Robinson out. How healthy is Marquise? I mean, we're talking about an ankle injury 3 weeks ago, a ribs injury 2 weeks ago. He's dealing with a knee injury as he's getting ready for this one. How effective and healthy is Marquise Lee, and how effective and healthy could he possibly be at this point, dealing with 3 different injuries, likely trying to get to the bye week?
Right, I think Marquise Lee is definitely welcoming the bye week coming up. Yeah, it's a great point. Marquise Lee's doing a lot of tough things. Everyone talks about that when he battled through the rib injury, and he was able to at least do a little bit late in practice this week. So, yeah, he's not 100%, but hopefully he'll be available. He is listed as questionable. We haven't heard any sort of word on whether Marquise will go or not, but I think he probably is going to be active. So this is one where, look, you're in a contract year, and the look on Marquise Lee is, that he's been injury plagued, and, this is a good opportunity for him to, show to not just the Jaguars, but the other 31 squads that, hey, I'm a guy that can play through things. So it's not enough that he just is active. He's got to also produce. But yeah, he's going to have to cut through some things today for sure. And, I don't think the Jaguars have much of a chance. If we look up at 4 o'clock today and Marquise Lee had, 2 catches for 17 yards on 4 targets.
This Jags defense leads the league in sacks, and only 2 quarterbacks in the league hold the ball longer than Jacoby Brissett. Hayes, do you think it's safe to put the over-under sack total today at 4?
Yeah, that's a great number. I will say that might be a push. I guess I'll take the under. I'll say they end up with 3.5. But I do think that they will constantly affect them. Brissett's pretty tough to get a hold of. He's fairly powerful, pretty good size, and runs it pretty well. So I could see it being a game where, maybe the Jaguars get 3.5 sacks, which would still be a really good outing. And, but you just feel the pressure throughout the game, and you can consistently see Brissett having to sort of get off of his mark, try and make plays. So I do think they'll get after him. I think this could be a prime game for Ngakoue to get one of his patented strip sacks. So that's something to bear watching. And I think Dante Fowler also has a good chance to get going today as well. So yeah, I'll say the Jaguars get 3.5 sacks.
Hayes, you caught up with Jaguars tight end Mercedes Lewis. Should he be a target more often for Jaguars quarterback Blake Bortles?
I think so, because they really haven't done a ton with them since the Baltimore game. And so, again, it's one of these he's due kind of thing. So I don't know that Mercedes has another 3-touchdown game in him, but the Jaguars certainly, and particularly if Fournette is out, then I think they do need to try and incorporate him a little bit more into the offense today. And, they should have the opportunity to do that at some point, particularly in the red zone. So we'll see. But Mercedes was great, and it was fun catching up to him yesterday.
catching up to him is probably the exact right way to say it, since he is a bit of a towering man. All right, Hayes, thanks so much, and have a great time covering the game today.
All right, thank you guys. Take care.
Hayes Carlin, Jaguars beat reporter for 1010XL, and here he is in a one-on-one yesterday with Jaguars tight end Marcedes Lewis.
We're pleased to be joined with Jaguars tight end Marcedes Lewis here in Indianapolis. Marcedes, how was the flight up?
I don't even remember. I was passed out for that hour and 20 minutes.
Do you usually go to sleep on the plane? Are you pretty good about that?
I think half the time I knock out, but normally I put on a movie, and if I fall asleep, I just fall asleep.
What's this trip like for you as far as coming to Lucas
This is the greatest
Oil
part of the
and
movie.
playing the Colts? Is this one of your favorite spots? Or is
Nobody
this,
puts baby in
just
a corner.
one of the road trips that you take?
Right there.
Just one of the road trips that we take. Obviously,
Take it, old man. You don't understand the youth culture.
Leather jacket and all.
This week on what the
Oh,
Rams,
yeah.
with that
And of course she's wearing something
are you
perfect to
pleased with the
dance in.
adjustments you guys were able to make in practice this week?
yeah, well, obviously, when you run the ball as well as we have so far during the season, there's going to be some tweaks. It takes different kind of
Now I
Horses,
have
hearts, and hands.
the time of my life. That's what song's about to play.
I think this is one of the best teams that you guys have brought to Indianapolis from what you've learned through these first 6 games with this group of guys you're with.
Yeah, I think so. I think, just in general, this team is one of the best ones I've been around since I've been a Jag. And, I know that, our minds are in the right places. And like I said, we just want to go out there and compete and get what we got and leave it on the field.
What have you learned about these 2 rookies, Leonard Fournette and Cam Robinson?
Those 2 guys are going to be really good players. They want to be really good. They're receptive to coaching.
30 seconds left.
They're humble, and they come to work every day to get better. I think, as young players, if you already have that, you give yourself a good chance to be really good down the line.
Say he's going into the bye week. How important is it to get to 4-3 and get some good vibes going into that break?
Well, that's huge. Obviously, you don't want to go into the bye week with a bad taste in your mouth, so it's important that we go out there and execute it and focus and do the best we can to make sure that happens.
Marcedes Lewis, thanks so much for your time. Best of luck tomorrow.
Appreciate it.
Thanks to Hayes for catching up with Marcedes yesterday up in Indianapolis. Do you think this team has gotten a little too high after certain wins? Head coach Doug Marrone has said we can't get too high, we can't get too low. Something tells me that you don't go win-loss, win-loss, win-loss if you don't get a little too high after those wins.
I don't know about high off the wins. I think they're just an inconsistent team because the NFL is a passing league and they can't throw the ball. They're in
But they
that.
did against the Ravens.
They did right. The inconsistent throwing the ball, right? And I think when you're inconsistent throwing the ball, you're going to have that. And expecting your defense, basically putting them in a position where, look, that game against the Rams last week, it was like, if they don't score, that's why the Colvin play was such a big deal that the officials didn't let it run. It's like, if the defense doesn't find a way to score in this game, likely they're not going to find a way to tie it up. That's the way it felt watching it. So when you're relying on that week to week, you're in trouble. And you hear from Marcedes Lewis there, he had the 3-touchdown game in Baltimore. Do you know how many catches the tight end position has through 6 games for the Jags?
I'm going to guess 8.
They got 10.
Okay.
That's with 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
In one, they got 10 from the entire position. It's not that Marcedes has 5.
I was going to say, O'Shaughnessy only has 1 or 2. Because he
4.
caught 1. Oh, he does?
He's
I
got
know he
4
caught
for
one against the
41.
Texans.
Yeah. Ben Koyak has 1 for 21.
Which, that was a huge play last week.
O'Shaughnessy 4 for 41. And Marcedes, who had 3 touchdowns in Baltimore, has 5 for 76.
Well.
That's the tight end position. Nothing is working right now in the passing game for this team. Alan Hearns is a leading reception guy with 21 for 244. There's just not much happening in the passing game right now. And until they get that fixed, it's gonna be a roller coaster. Until they find some way to get some kind of consistency in the passing game, which is unlikely with Blake Bortles playing quarterback, if we're being honest about it, then they're going to be this. The weeks where the defense scores, they got a really good chance to win.
And it's
the
almost
weeks where it doesn't, who knows?
But with this defense too, it's almost like they know that they have to win the game. So they're almost over aggressive. And I think I heard Loggeman talking about this a couple weeks ago. Is that they miss the big play because they're over aggressive and they're not playing in their gaps where they should be.
That was the Jets game, yeah.
Yeah, and going back to the tight end position, you look around the league, it's one of the most productive pass-catching positions for most teams is the tight end because it's a mismatch every time. And yet for the Jaguars, only 10 passes.
This franchise has a
position
history,
draw.
does not like to utilize the tight end position for whatever reason.
Well, maybe this next draft. We shall see. Can the Jaguars head into the bye week 4-3? We'll give you our predictions next on 1010XL.
I wonder how audio. For you guys that are watching, let me know how the audio sounded for that interview. If you could hear it clearly, if not, that's about as loud as we can go on the audio. So let me know if you heard it well enough to not disrupt, or if it's just not worth it even putting it up there.
That's right. Delicious Goods food, napkins, plates, utensils, everything you need. They'll even throw in free chips and salsa. All you have to do is order by the Wednesday prior to the
Cool.
game at Rose Catering and they'll
Trying YouTube today for a live stream. We got people from the UK watching. So hi UK. I sent a little note to Kevin/Ryan. Said, sorry.
I called you Ryan.
Yeah. Sorry, I messed up your Twitter name too.
Mentioned that last night. Who else could have done it? It just struck me. Did the Astros become the first team to win a pennant in both leagues?
Oh dang.
Because there's not a whole lot of teams that switch leagues.
No, they didn't win against the Cards, right?
No, but they went to the World Series in 2005. They won a pennant.
In 2017, they became the first modern franchise in Major League Baseball history to win a pennant in both leagues.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because they went once in the National League.
And they played against the White Sox.
Anytime you can humiliate the Yankees.
But they were swept in
for
four.
it. For it.
Shea Patterson is expected to miss the rest of the season with a knee injury. Not that Ole Miss is going anywhere.
Yeah, those mid 90s to mid 2000s Astros teams. Like if they did a baseball documentary that's the equivalent of the football, like the missing championships, those Astros teams were so good. They just happened to be in a league with the Braves. They couldn't get over them. They couldn't get past them.
But
And then the
Braves-
Cardinals came on.
The Braves went 15 years in a row, but only won, what, once?
They won the World Series in '95.
Sorry about that. I'm gonna have to come up with another solution.
Oh, wait, why? Not everyone can give you high quality for a fraction of the price. Aries, one perfect razor, none of the extra noise. As a special offer for radio listeners.
Because this is what I'm dealing with.
Shave set trial. When you visit Aries.com.
I put this up to the phone so you can hear the audio with my headphones on a splitter.
Code 1000 to redeem our special shave set trial offer. Aries.com, code 1000. Again,
Yeah, they won 15 division titles in a row. They went to the World
15?
Series 5 times.
Yeah,
Holy
15.
crap.
Oh, the Braves. Like that's
Oh.
why I don't
Yeah, not
complain
the
about.
Astros.
Yeah, that's why I don't
I was like,
complain.
where was I?
Yeah, I don't complain as a Braves fan much. I'm just like, I know. Like when I was growing up, I was spoiled to death by that team. It was every year I knew what they were going to be, so I don't complain about it too much. I did want Freddie gone. I talked about that plenty. I had a celebratory show that Tuesday night. Like he got fired that day. Like the whole show was a celebration of Freddie being out.
Have you been to the new park yet?
Yeah, I went saw him play the Cubs this year.
Nice.
Who won?
Went up for Cubs.
Yeah.
That was coming out of the All-Star break. It looked like the Braves may be competitive. They were a game under 500 when I went up there to see them play. It was the weekend of my birthday. They got swept by the Cubs that day and never got to within 3 games of 500 again in the second half of the season.
Gotcha.
They just fell apart second half of the year. But I saw a good game.
Which is good.
I saw a 4-3 game with the Braves with their runners on second and third with 2 outs in the ninth. I mean, an opportunity.
That atmosphere last night was
It's
electric. It
unbelievable.
was awesome. I was like, okay, maybe I'll fall asleep before the end. And I was like, I'm wired watching this
Playoff
freaking
baseball.
game.
So,
I know.
like those home get like
Ugh.
it just gets louder. It's like it can't get louder. Like there's no way it could get louder, and then it gets louder.
Yeah.
I've been a baseball fan my whole life, but this is the first season that I haven't watched a game from the beginning to the end until this postseason. That's when I've started watching, and I'm like, I kind of miss baseball, so I'm gonna miss it just in time to catch, maybe 7 more games, maybe 7.
The Dodgers are so good. Their lineup.
I
is
want the
ridiculous.
Dodgers to win bad.
Their bullpen is, I
just
mean,
love
it's untouchable right now.
Yeah, but I mean, when I heard that stat last night on Altuve, he hits 451 against fastballs 95 or higher.
Yeah, Altuve's unbelievable.
Who hits like that? Nobody.
It's like you blink and it's gone.
I want him.
And
the
the
Astros.
Sports Illustrated, it was so cool. Sports Illustrated ran a cover story about the Astros in 2014, saying meet the 2017 World Series champion Houston Astros, because that's when they were in the second year of that rebuild, and they were like, they're gonna be good. You just gotta wait on it.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, can you imagine how much that'll be worth?
Seriously, if they win,
that's awesome.
Lots of tailgates going on next weekend, that's for sure. Right now, I'm sure people are tailgating up in Indianapolis, and hopefully there aren't very many Indy fans. Hopefully it's just a massive amount of black and teal in that Colts stadium.
That was a little surprising, too, when we had Kevin Bowen on earlier in the show, and he said that StubHub tickets for that game, for today's game, are like $8 or $9. You don't hear much about Indianapolis not selling out their stadium.
Yeah, I guess like he said, a lot of fans went to the Peyton Manning statue unveiling and the ceremony for that, and then now they were basically lied to, they feel like, about their quarterback, that he was going to be able to come back a lot earlier, and now they're not really sure. And I think, you know, when you invest in season tickets and it doesn't turn out to be the way you think, you might not show up. But
bashing fan bases is stupid, right? Like, this whole national media thing of this is a good fan base, this is the bad fan base. No, you're a fan base of a team that's winning. That's all you're not good or bad. You're winning or you're losing. And when the product is bad, people don't go watch.
And there are very few teams that, yes, like Lambeau Field is perennially always sold out.
They always sell out, but you go look at that stadium when it's a bad Green Bay product, and they don't fill it up.
And there's
when
also
they're bad.
Nothing to do up there. Nothing. So when you live in sort of the southern states, in Florida and California, and even in Texas, really, you see that there are other things to do, and people are going to spend their time doing other things when the team isn't performing up to par.
Yeah, and it's the same thing in college football, too.
Wisconsin diehard people, that was Blythe that said that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's a fact. Like, there's nothing to do up there.
No.
It's
cheese
snow.
factories.
I'm sure that's nice one time out of the year.
I can remember, 10, 15 years ago talking about the fan base stuff where people thought places like the Swamp and Tallahassee were recession-proof. Basically, it's like there's no way they're ever not going to be filled.
Sure.
Look at these overhead shots of these home games the last couple weeks for Florida and Florida State. If you're bad, people don't want to go. There is an investment of time and energy that people just say, no, I'm not doing it. I can stay home. I don't want to go watch a bad product. That's all it is. It's not good or bad fan bases. It's winning or losing products. That's all it is. And when football teams in the National Football League aren't winning, then yeah, it ought to be $8 or $9 to get in, because why would you want to go watch your team lose? That doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun. And for all those fringe fans, there's going to be the hardcore 30,000. They're going to be there every week going, why aren't y'all showing up every week? We got them here in Jacksonville too, right? And I respect the hell out of those fans. I really do. It's like that they just sit there and suffer through it every year with the product that the Jaguars especially have put on for the last decade, and they show up every week. I got a lot of respect for that, but I don't expect everybody in the city to show up just because there's a football game that weekend. You got to be better than that.
And tailgating and going to a home game just in general is a couple-day process. You have to get everything ready before game day, your food, what you're bringing, everything that's involved with it. And then tailgating for a 1 o'clock game, for a Jaguars game, you're down there by 10 a.m. usually, sometimes earlier, and you don't get home until 6:30. Your entire day is gone. And for the majority of people that have to work on Monday mornings, it's a challenge to tailgate at an at-home game, or to go to a game just in general for football Sundays in America.
All right, it is time for our predictions, folks. Tony, I'll start with you. Lock of the week.
Lock of the week. Let me see here. What for lock of the week?
I was not excited enough.
No, I think there's not a whole lot I love for the lock this week, but Pittsburgh playing at home against Cincinnati. I know it's a divisional matchup. I don't have much faith in Cincinnati. I don't really have that much faith in Pittsburgh, but there aren't a whole lot of games that I look at and say, well, that's for sure. I even think Seattle having to go across the country to New York, they ought to beat the Giants, but it's not one of those where I'm like, oh, they'll absolutely beat the Giants. So Pittsburgh playing at home in a matchup they ought to be familiar with. I'll call that my lock today against Cincinnati.
That's going to be my lock too. So I just similar note to Tony. I think that drama has sort of quieted down a little bit in that Steelers locker room. So I think that this is a game that the offense starts to get back in sync with each other.
Like I said, thought about that one, but I went with the hapless team in the NFL, the Titans over the Browns. Cleveland is back to starting rookie quarterback Deshaun Kaiser, and he's got not just the lowest QBR, as we mentioned before, he's also the lowest in the league with incompletion percentage. He's not a good quarterback. So the Browns, yet again, messed up the draft. They did choose defensive end Myles Garrett with the first pick overall. They probably should have gone with someone like quarterback Deshaun Watson and taken him away from the Texans. We've seen what he can do. Like Tony said, he leads the league, or tied for the league lead in touchdowns. He threw one against the Jags, none against the Bengals, and then after that he's thrown at least 2 every single game. So, and with one game at 4 touchdowns, one game at 5 touchdowns. But anyway, the Browns are going down. Upset pick, Blythe.
My upset pick, I think in a division where we thought everything was for certain, has recently been turned on its head with the AFC West matchup. We saw that crazy game with Oakland and the Chiefs on Thursday night with that, the defensive holding calls in order to end the game. But I'm going to go with my upset pick with the Broncos over the Chargers over the Broncos in Denver. I think the Denver Broncos are favored by 1, but give me the Chargers in this one.
Chargers over the Broncos. Tony.
That'll be interesting. I actually picked the Chargers to win the division this year, and it was not looking good through 4 weeks.
Sure wasn't.
But it's looking okay right now, especially if they got the win today. They're just 2 back, still with some matchups against Kansas City to come. So we'll see how that one goes, if Denver's going to drop back-to-back. But
normally I'd say it's hard to play in Mile High, but the Giants went in, undefeated. The Giants went in with
I thought the
no
game was
wins.
in L.A.
Oh, did you say?
I think it's in Denver.
No, I thought it was in L.A.
I think it's in Denver.
Quick Google search.
Let me look.
Chargers Broncos
it's Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I think Denver's a favorite on the road in that one.
But
I think
they are a plus.
So that makes more sense as to why it was only a 1-point favorite.
Yeah. For me, my upset of the week, I don't know. Again, I didn't love any of these matchups this week.
Me neither.
Because I don't trust the consistency of this football team having to go on the road, even with all the issues that their opponent's going to be facing playing at home today, it just feels like a weird week for me for New Orleans. And so I will take the Brett Hundley-led Green Bay Packers to get the upset at home against the Saints.
See, the Saints' defense has been one of the most surprising units in all of the NFL. They used to just be a defense that got torched, and they've been so much better.
They got torched last week. They just happened to, Matt Stafford threw one directly to a defensive lineman. May have been the reason they wound up winning that game.
They had at least a couple interceptions against Stafford, which he's usually pretty good about not doing that. So I think the Saints' defense has improved. So that'll be a fun one to watch, though, just to see what Brett Hundley looks like. At least he gets to start at home. And
he was also a possible trade candidate for the Jaguars.
He sure was. There are a lot of them. We're playing against one of them, too, in Jacoby Brissett. Yeah. The Cardinals over the Rams at Twickenham Stadium in London. Arizona arrived earlier this week to adjust to the time difference, while the Rams stayed in Ponte Vedra until Thursday. Also, by the way, Adrian Peterson, this is his 3rd trip to London in 3 weeks. Since he used to be with another team, but AP made the Cardinals look smart trading for him. The Saints gave up a conditional the Cardinals gave to the Saints a conditional 2018 draft pick. He got 134 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Buccaneers. I had him on my bench last week. I will not do that again. AP made everybody
I kind of think that was a fluke game, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't think the Rams are all that good. I think the Rams just faced a Jaguars offense that couldn't do anything, because they couldn't figure out how to beat a 6-2, for crying out loud. All right, Tony, Jaguars, Colts, what you got?
I got a bad feeling is honestly what I have. I don't trust this football team right now. I don't think offensively they have enough consistency to have a whole lot of faith in them. Fournette being out, I think, is a big deal. He is the engine that makes this entire thing run. Him being out is a massive deal. If he's not going to be able to play for this team, I think Marquise Lee being banged up is a bad sign. There was a point on Thursday where it's if they have to play a game without Fournette and Lee, I mean, and it sounds like Lee's going to play, but he can't possibly be 100%. And it's already a team that's having so many problems trying to get the ball downfield. They ought to be able to do it today against the Indianapolis Colts. Defensively, they match up so well against this Colts offense. They ought to be able to dominate on that side of the ball. This is a bully of a football team. And if they aren't playing with a lead, they are so vulnerable. And it's difficult to imagine this offense for the Jaguars, to me, even against this Colts team, being able to provide a lead early enough. I think it's going to be a toss-up kind of game. On Friday, I picked it 16-9, but that's when I thought the Jags were going to have Leonard Fournette available still. I was still leaning that way. Right now, like I said, I got a bad feeling. I'll pick the Colts because I know everyone else is going to pick the Jaguars. That's just the way it's going to work. I'll take the Colts because I just don't trust this offense to get it rolling today. I'll take the Colts 13-12.
Oh,
Yikes.
Jaguars, I guess, get 4 field goals in that one. Blythe?
I tried to be objectional when it comes to this kind of stuff, and especially with the Jaguars earlier in the week, I thought there's no way that this team is going to win against this Colts team. I just think it's one of those just funny games where the Jaguars should win and they're going to lose. But after looking at some of these numbers, Blake Bortles is very good against this Colts team. In 4 meetings, he's had 7 touchdowns, no interceptions, a 95-plus passer rating. And then on the other side of the ball, we all know how good this defense is, and Jacoby Brissett holds the ball longer, or he holds the ball for one of the longest periods out of all quarterbacks in the entire league. So I think this is a chance for that defense to sort of smuggle him a little bit. And with this Jaguars offense, I think that they get something going even without Fournette. Chris Ivory had 9 catches last week and a touchdown, so I think that this is going to be a game where we see Ivory shine a little bit more. And I got the Jags winning 24-17, even though I did predict this score before I heard the news about Fournette. So they might not score that many points, but I still think they come away with the win.
You can change it. This is your chance.
I was going to say I did.
I'm going to go, let me go 17-14.
Very close to what I have. I do think it's a very low-scoring game. Even though Brissett has been calm, as we talked to Kevin Bowen from up in Indianapolis, something tells me that the Jaguars' defensive line is going to make today a very long day for Brissett, or Brisket, if you want to call him that. So I'm going to go Jaguars 17, Colts 13. I just think there's an edge to this Jaguars defense, and on the road, they like to make the other quarterback pay. All right.
I don't disagree with you. My question about these close scores with the Jaguars winning, though,
they haven't done it yet.
And I had to ask myself this last week. Usually, the reason you win close games in the NFL is because your quarterback goes and makes a play in the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. That's the reason you win close games.
Which Blake did make a play against the Jets with that ball to Marquise Lee that Lee dropped.
He had an opportunity to make 15. Like he made that one play, and I get it. Marquise Lee didn't come down with it. They should have, but it put him in maybe an opportunity to win that game. They got the ball over and over and over and over and over and over again, and they did it last week too. They got the ball twice with an opportunity to go tie it down a touchdown. Couldn't move the ball. Like that's the idea. It's like they missed that one big opportunity, but lost in that is like the forest in the trees argument, right? It's like there was that one opportunity. What about the other 15?
Sure.
That they weren't taking advantage of too. It makes that glaring missed opportunity that much more glaring because it's like, but we could have had that one. Well, you're allowed to make that play 5 snaps before. You're allowed to win that game in regulation. You're allowed to go score on 1st and goal from the 4-yard line. There were all these opportunities that Blake didn't come through. The one opportunity where he put it on the money, Marquise blew it too in that circumstance. But it's hard to trust this team led by that guy with the ball and an opportunity to win it in the fourth quarter. I have no confidence that it's going to happen, especially with Fournette off the field. Without the wild card of just being able to say, well, give it to Leonard and let that guy who's just a freak of an athlete go make a play. They don't even have that wild card this week, it doesn't seem.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I just think it's going to be like 17-0 Jaguars at the half, and then the Colts will come back, but the offense doesn't score again.
But if it's 17-0, they better get out the door. If it's 17-0 at half, this game will end 40-3.
But this Colts team is not a second-half team, and they've lost. I think it was Ryan said earlier in the show, or Kevin said earlier in the show, that it was they've lost 5 out of their 6 games in the fourth quarter, or they've had a lead going into the fourth quarter.
I know they've had a lead in 5 games, and they're 2-3 in those games. Yeah, so
it could just be who sucks the least in the fourth quarter.
It certainly could be. We shall see. It's at least going to be a fun game day. That is a wrap for us. Thanks to our producer, Matt LeVay, for making it all happen today. For Blythe Brumleve and Fat Tony, I'm Lauren Brooks. Thanks for listening to the 1010XL Kickoff, fueled by Sawyer Gas and presented by Coastal Equipment. Enjoy your game day, and stay tuned for the Publix Tailgate Show with JP Shadrick and Mike Dempsey on 1010XL.
Bye, guys. Thanks for watching.